You ever notice how people tense up before they open something? A message, a letter, a single line of text, as if the world might collapse the moment they read it. Funny thing is, they never expect it to be good. No. Humans are experts at preparing for disappointment. But happiness, real, bone-shaking, jaw-dropping happiness, that's the one thing they never see coming. It's almost amusing watching someone who's been through too much finally stumble onto a truth that wasn't designed to hurt them. They freeze. They blink. Their heart hesitates, like it's checking if it's allowed to beat a little faster. That moment is where everything changes. Because when you read something that hits you so deeply it shocks you into smiling, you realize life hasn't forgotten you after all. Happiness, it's a peculiar little creature, isn't it? Everyone claims to want it. Everyone chases it. Everyone swears they deserve it. Yet the moment it actually shows up, they flinch. They pull back. They look over their shoulder as if someone's about to shout, "Got you." Because real happiness, the kind that shakes the bones and rattles the soul, never arrives politely. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't slip in through the back door like some shy guest. No, it strikes. It hits. It crashes into your life like a spark you didn't see coming, and suddenly everything you thought you understood about yourself gets rewritten. It's almost funny how unprepared people are for the good things. Pain. Oh, they're familiar with that. Loss, disappointment, betrayal. Those are practically old friends by now. You call their names and they show up instantly. But joy, real joy, walks in unannounced, and the whole system malfunctions. The heart stutters. The brain freezes. The breath catches somewhere between surprise and disbelief. Not because happiness is rare, but because people stop believing it can belong to them. You've seen it. You've lived it. Those moments when you're convinced life has forgotten your address, when every day blends into the next, and your smile feels like something you left behind years ago. You get used to surviving instead of living. And in that quiet, dull routine, you stop expecting anything extraordinary. You stop checking the sky for miracles. You stop believing that something good could ever fall into your lap without asking for a piece of your soul in return. That's the exact moment life likes to play its favorite trick. It sends happiness your way, not slowly, not gently, but in a sudden burst that knocks the air out of your lungs. That's why it hits so hard. Because it ambushes you. It arrives when your guard is down, when you're too tired to pretend, when you've finally accepted that maybe this is all there is. And then bam, in comes a moment, a message, a truth so sharply bright it cuts through years of dullness. It's like someone lit a match inside a pitch-black room. Too bright for your eyes at first. Too warm for your cold hands. Too kind for your wounded heart. But still, it burns through the darkness you thought would never leave. People underestimate the power of a single moment. They think change requires storms, revolutions, grand gestures. But sometimes all it takes is one tiny spark. One flicker of something pure, something unexpectedly good, to shatter the heaviness you've been dragging behind you. And the reason it hits harder than anything else is simple, because it exposes the truth that you were never as hopeless as you believed. There was always a door waiting to open, always a light waiting to be seen, always a smile waiting to return to your face. You just stopped looking for it. Happiness, the real kind, doesn't wait for the perfect timing. It doesn't check whether you're ready. It doesn't ask if you've healed enough, grown enough, forgiven enough. It arrives when it wants to, without warning, and it forces you to confront parts of yourself. You've ignored the parts that still hope, still dream, still want more out of life than breathing in and out like a machine. It shows you that even after everything you've survived, something good can still choose you. Something bright can still call your name. And that's where the shock comes in. Because for years you've trained yourself to expect the worst, to prepare for pain, to anticipate disappointment. You walk through life with armor on your chest and caution under your tongue. Then suddenly happiness slips through a crack in that armor, and you're left standing there, exposed, overwhelmed, wondering if you're allowed to feel something good without paying a price. The shock isn't from the joy itself, it's from realizing you've forgotten how to receive it. But the greatest part? Happiness doesn't care about your doubts. It doesn't care how long you've been hurting or how deeply you've buried. Your hope, when it arrives with force. It pushes past your defenses. It shakes you awake. It reminds you that somewhere under the exhaustion, under the fear, under the numbness, there's still a heart capable of beating faster for the right reasons. There's still a soul capable of lighting up at the right moment. There's still a version of you waiting to return, the version that hasn't been crushed by the world. And when that shock hits you, when the happiness sinks in, you start to realize something important. Maybe all those quiet days weren't for nothing. Maybe all the waiting, all the surviving, all the disappointments were leading you right here to the moment that feels too good to be true. The moment that reminds you you're still alive in ways you forgot you could be. The moment that proves joy hasn't forgotten you. That's why happiness is at its strongest, when it arrives uninvited. Because it doesn't just brighten your day, it rewrites your story. It forces you to reconsider everything you thought you knew about yourself. It cracks open the walls you built to protect your heart and lets the light fall inside again. And in that blinding, breathtaking moment, you understand why it hits the way it does, because it had to, because you were never going to let it in if it came softly. Because sometimes the only way to break through years of darkness is with a shock of pure, undeniable light. The mind is a fascinating little circus, isn't it? Whether people admit it or not, they're far more comfortable expecting misery than embracing anything good. Bad news? Oh, that's familiar territory. It fits like an old coat. Worn out, heavy, a little ugly, but predictable. You hear it and you nod, because it confirms everything you've already rehearsed for years. But good news, real good news, that's the thing that sends a chill down your spine. Not because it hurts, but because it's foreign, unpracticed, uncomfortable in a way people never talk about. You want to know why? Because most people have spent their lives preparing for disaster. Every setback, every disappointment, every broken promise trains the mind like a loyal dog. Sit, stay, expect the worst. You get so used to negativity that anything brighter than a dim flicker feels suspicious. When someone smiles kindly, when an opportunity appears, when life whispers something hopeful, the mind jolts like it's being played with. It doesn't know how to process it. The mind doesn't fear pain, it understands pain. What it fears is hope. Hope is dangerous when you've been wounded long enough. It teases you. It promises the possibility that maybe you were wrong about everything. And people hate being wrong, especially about themselves, especially about their chances, especially about the life they think they're destined to live. So the moment good news shows its face, the mind starts scrambling, searching for the trick, the trap, the catch. Not because there is one, but because the mind feels naked without its usual shield of pessimism. Bad news keeps you armored. Good news forces you to take the armor off, and here's the beautifully twisted part. Most people would rather be right about their misery than risk being wrong about their happiness. Imagine that. They'd rather cling to the familiar darkness than step toward an unfamiliar light. Because darkness, at least, is predictable. You know where the shadows fall. You know how cold it gets. You know how it feels to walk alone in it. But light exposes things. It shows you possibilities you stopped believing in. It forces you to acknowledge that life might still have something sweet left for you. And that's terrifying for someone who's forgotten how to taste sweetness. The brain becomes a master storyteller when good news shows up. Suddenly you're questioning motives, overthinking possibilities, poking holes in things that aren't broken. You treat good news like a suspicious stranger standing too close. Why now? What's the catch? Is this a trap? It's not paranoia, it's conditioning. Years of disappointment teach you to brace yourself, to flinch before anything even touches you. So when something pure finally tries to land in your lap, your mind panics. It doesn't know how to receive without calculating the cost. The craziest part is how effortlessly people accept the worst outcomes. Tell someone their dream failed, they shrug. Tell them someone left, they nod. Tell them life will get harder, and they barely blink. But tell them something beautiful is coming, something good is happening, something unexpectedly kind is waiting for them, they freeze. They hesitate. They get quiet, because that awakens a part of them they tried to bury, the part that still wants to believe life is more than just a series of punches to the gut. Good news forces you to confront your forgotten desires. It whispers to the parts you don't show anyone, the tender places, the hopeful pieces, the dreams you laughed off to survive. The moment something good appears, those old desires start waking up again. And your mind, terrified of losing them a second time, tries to shut everything down before you get attached. Not because you don't deserve happiness, but because your mind doesn't trust itself to handle another fracture. People think fear is reserved for danger. But the truth is, the mind is far more afraid of joy. Joy requires vulnerability. Joy requires belief. Joy requires you to unclench your fists and open your hands. And when you've spent your whole life defending yourself, the idea of opening up feels like stepping into enemy fire. People fear being blindsided by disappointment more than they crave being surprised by happiness. So the mind chooses caution over possibility, even when possibility is the very thing you need. But the truth is, good news won't stop just because you fear it. Happiness doesn't wait for you to be ready. Blessings don't pause at the door until you feel safe enough to accept them. They come when they come. They arrive when the universe decides it's time to turn a page you thought was glued shut. And if your mind shakes, trembles, or questions it, that's normal. Because good things feel strange when you've been starving for too long. Even a feast can scare a man who's used to crumbs. And maybe that's the most honest part of it all. Good news feels frightening only because it shines a light on everything you've endured. It reflects the years you've spent surviving, fighting, waiting. It shows you just how long you've been walking in the dark. It reminds you that you deserve more than the scraps life has thrown your way. The mind isn't scared of good news because it's bad. It's scared because it's new, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, a shock to the system. A reminder that your story isn't done, no matter how many times. You convinced yourself otherwise. And once that truth settles in, once the mind starts to realize that not every bright thing is a threat. You begin to feel something you almost forgot existed, a kind of trembling excitement. A sense that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful is finally stepping toward you. And the fear that once held you back starts to look a lot like the reason you needed this moment in the first place. It's strange, isn't it? How people walk around thinking their lives change slowly, step by step, bit by bit, as if transformation is something that politely knocks, hands you a schedule, and gives you time to prepare. But that's the lie they tell themselves to feel in control. Deep down, everyone knows the truth. Your entire world can crack open, flip upside down, or burst into light because of one moment, one sentence, one message. Words are the quietest detonators, and people never realize how powerful they are until one lands in their lap and rearranges everything. You go about your day thinking it's ordinary, predictable, maybe even painfully dull. You scroll, you sigh, you ignore half the things in front of you because nothing ever feels worth reacting to. And then, out of nowhere, there it is, a message, a line of text, a few words thrown together like they mean nothing. But somehow they hit harder than every disappointment you've endured. They cut through all the noise in your mind. They pierce through the thick layers of numbness you've collected over the years. They reach a place inside you that you didn't even know was still alive. That's the beauty and terror of it. You never see the important message coming. You expect the worst. You prepare for chaos. But you never prepare for the truth that can save you, the truth that can wake you up, the truth that can remind you what it feels like to feel something again. And isn't that the real shock? Not that the words were special, but that you were still capable of being moved by them. Most people underestimate how fragile their perspective really is. They think their outlook is sturdy, fixed, unshakable. They believe they've built this towering fortress around their heart, impenetrable after all the years of hurt. But then one message arrives, a message that doesn't scream or demand attention, and that fortress begins to crack. Not because the message is destructive, but because it reaches inside and pulls out a piece of you that's been quiet for far too long. Maybe it's a truth you didn't want to admit. Maybe it's a promise you stopped believing in. Maybe it's a reminder of your worth, your strength, your future, something you lost in the storms life threw at you. Or maybe it's something beautifully simple, something kind, something that tells you the universe still has unfinished plans with your name scribbled all over them. And that's when everything changes. Because once the mind receives something powerful enough, it can no longer pretend it's the same. Once you read words that shift your heart, you can't unfeel them. You can't crawl back into the shell you once called home. One message can wipe away months of doubt, years of discouragement, or an entire lifetime of believing you didn't matter. It can awaken the parts of you that have been sleeping with their eyes open. Think about the timing, too. Messages that change your life never arrive when you're ready. They arrive when you're one thought away from giving up, when you're exhausted, when you're convinced that nothing meaningful will ever reach you again. That's when the universe slips in its little surprise. A few words that feel like someone reached into the chaos of your mind, pulled out the exact puzzle piece you misplaced, and handed it right back to you. The moment your eyes read it, everything inside you shifts, sometimes subtly, sometimes violently, but always undeniably. The funniest part is how small the moment looks from the outside. A screen lighting up, a notification sound, a sentence, a single breath of language. To anyone else, it's nothing. But to you, it's the spark that catches the fuse, the whisper that wakes the sleeping giant inside your chest. People don't realize how close they are to a completely different life until one message pushes them over the edge they didn't know they were standing on. And this isn't just about motivation or comfort. It's about recognition, real recognition. The kind that feels like someone finally saw through all the layers you've been hiding under. Like someone reached past your fear, your doubt, your exhaustion, and tapped the real you. That version you've been burying under years of survival. One message can do what an army of experiences couldn't bring you back to yourself. But what truly makes it powerful is the way it hijacks your perspective. A message like that rearranges your thoughts. It shifts how you see your past, your future, your opportunities, your worth. It opens doors you mentally welded shut. It revives dreams you told yourself were foolish to keep. It reminds you that the world is bigger than the pain you've lived through. And just like that, the same life that felt suffocating a minute ago suddenly feels filled with possibility, because sometimes it's not the situation that's suffocating you, it's the lens you've been forced to look through. One message can clean that lens or shatter it completely. And once it's shattered, you don't go back to the old view. You start noticing things you ignored. You start feeling things you avoided. You start believing in things you laughed off before. One message can flip a switch you didn't know existed, and suddenly you're not the same person you were before you read it. You're someone who sees differently, thinks differently, hopes differently. A single moment, a single spark, a single line of text can turn the entire direction of your life without asking for permission. That's the quiet, twisted power of words. The smallest ones leave the biggest marks. The unexpected ones shift the deepest parts of you. And the right message, arriving at the wrong time, has the power to rewrite everything you thought you understood about your story. It's strange how people don't notice the weight they're carrying until something lifts it. They walk around dragging years of quiet pain like it's part of their skin, part of their bones, part of their identity. They convince themselves it's normal, that everyone must feel like this, that heaviness is just the price of living. And then out of nowhere, joy arrives. Not the loud kind, not the celebratory kind. No, the soft kind, the unexpected kind. The kind that sneaks into your chest and does something dangerous. It reminds you what it feels like to breathe without hurting. That's when you realize how long you've been living in a storm you stopped acknowledging. One moment of unexpected happiness cracks your armor, exposes the bruises you've pretended weren't there, and suddenly every buried ache becomes painfully clear. People mistake joy for a gift. But sometimes it's a mirror, a cruel, honest mirror that shows you how empty you've been, how numb you became, how long you've silenced the parts of you that used to laugh without hesitation. You see, pain has this funny way of disguising itself. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sits quietly in the corner of your soul, convincing you it's harmless. It blends into your routines. It becomes your normal. You stop questioning it. You learn to function around it, build your life on top of it, smile through it. You get so used to the ache that you forget it's not supposed to be there. And then joy, unexpected, uninvited, steps into your life and shines a little light on that corner. Suddenly you see the shadows you've been living with. It hits people harder than they'd like to admit. That moment when joy makes them flinch, when a compliment feels suspicious, when kindness feels overwhelming, when a bit of good news makes their chest tighten instead of relax. Why? Because unexpected joy exposes the truth. The pain never left. You simply learned how to hide it, even from yourself. And isn't it beautifully tragic how humans fear happiness more than suffering? Suffering is predictable. It's familiar. It's a wound you know how to protect. But joy is a risk. Joy threatens the quiet agreement you made with your own pain. That agreement where you told yourself, this is just how life is now. And joy shatters it instantly. It whispers, no, it's not. And that whisper is more terrifying than any scream. When something unexpectedly good happens, an opportunity, a message, a chance, a moment, you feel your heart stutter. Not because it's too heavy, but because it's too light. You're not used to lightness anymore. That lightness exposes the weight you've been dragging, the exhaustion you've normalized, the dreams you buried because you were tired of getting hurt by them. It shows you all the places where you settled because reaching higher felt dangerous. It reveals how deeply you've carried hurt in silence, quietly, without ever asking for help. People think they're strong because they endure pain. But sometimes real strength is revealed when joy arrives, and they don't know how to accept it. You can tell when someone's been hurting for too long by the way they react to something good. They pause. They question it. Their eyes widen like they're being offered something forbidden. And in that frozen second, you can see every piece of pain they've swallowed over the years rising to the surface. Joy has a strange way of pulling the curtain back. It shows you how much you've been suppressing, how much you've been pretending, how much you've been sacrificing just to get through each day. It shows you that the smile you wear is not the smile you feel. It shows you that your silence wasn't peace, it was surrender. Unexpected joy is a spotlight, and it reveals everything the darkness helped you hide. And then, something interesting happens. Once joy exposes your silent pain, you can't unsee it. You start noticing things. The tightness in your chest that you assumed was normal. The way you laugh only halfway. The way you brace yourself before every conversation. The way you avoid getting your hopes up because hope has betrayed you before. Suddenly, you realize you've been living small to avoid getting hurt big. You've been settling for numbness because you thought numbness was safer than feeling alive. But unexpected joy snaps something inside you awake. It shakes the dust off the parts of you that still remember how to feel deeply. It reminds you that you once had dreams, that you once loved fearlessly, that you once believed in things without apologizing for it. And when that memory returns, so does the truth. You were never meant to live your life under the weight of quiet suffering. The most haunting part is this. Joy doesn't fix the pain. It exposes it. It reveals it. It hands it back to you in a way that forces you to acknowledge what you've ignored. But that's the first step to healing. People don't heal because they're tired. They heal because something finally wakes them up. Something finally shows them the contrast between the life they're living and the life they were meant to feel. Unexpected joy is that contrast. It's the shock to the system. The jolt that reminds you that your heart isn't dead, it's just been sleeping. And once it wakes up, once it remembers how good can feel, it refuses to go back into silence. It refuses to settle for numbness. It refuses to keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. And that's the real reason unexpected joy is so powerful. It doesn't just make you happy. It makes you aware of the pain you've carried, aware of the healing you need, aware of the possibilities you've locked away. It forces you to confront the truth you've avoided for years. You deserve more than the shadows you've learned to call home. And once joy shows you that truth, even for a brief moment, you can never fully return to the darkness you came from. Funny thing about pain, people think it's a sign of weakness. They think if you're hurting, you must be fragile, breakable, lacking something everyone else seems to have. But what they don't realize is that pain doesn't show up because you're weak. It shows up because you kept going long after your strength should have run out. It hangs around because you refuse to give up, even when giving up would have been the easier choice. You weren't weak. You were exhausted. And exhaustion wears the same mask as defeat, so people confuse the two. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise finally quiets, when the constant ache you've carried for years suddenly softens, when the world feels a little less sharp, a little less threatening. That moment is strange, unfamiliar, almost suspicious, because you've spent so long wrestling with life that ease feels like a trick. You don't trust peace. You don't trust calm. You don't trust the idea that maybe, just maybe, you made it through the worst and you're still here. It's in that quiet moment, when life stops hurting the way it used to, that a realization creeps in. A slow, unsettling realization. You weren't weak all this time. You were tired, bone tired, soul tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from a lack of strength, but from carrying burdens no one else could see. The kind of tired that forms from fighting battles in your mind every day, battles you never spoke about, battles that drained you drop by drop until you mistook your weariness for weakness. This is the part no one talks about. Pain doesn't break you. The refusal to acknowledge your exhaustion does. You push yourself, telling yourself to be strong, to be patient, to keep going because you have no other choice. You keep trying to outrun disappointment, outsmart heartbreak, outlast fear. And somewhere along the way, the line between surviving and suffering disappears. You stop noticing the weight on your shoulders because you've been carrying it for so long that it feels like it belongs there. But then life shifts. Not dramatically, not with fireworks. Sometimes it's as small as a kinder morning, a better day, a single breath that doesn't hurt as much as the one before. And in that tiny flicker of relief, the truth hits you harder than any pain ever did. You weren't weak. You were fighting on empty. And the fact that you made it this far is proof of strength, not the absence of it. People around you might look at you and think you're calm now, relaxed, healed. They don't understand that your peace isn't accidental. It's earned. It came from surviving situations that should have broken you. It came from facing nights that felt endless. It came from holding yourself together when everything inside you was unraveling. Peace didn't fall into your lap. You built it from scraps of hope. You kept alive even when everything else fell apart. The irony is that life stops hurting not because it becomes easier, but because you finally stop pretending you're invincible. You stop punishing yourself for feeling overwhelmed. You stop expecting yourself to endure every storm without shaking. You stop labeling yourself weak for needing rest, needing healing, needing time to gather your pieces. That shift, that acceptance, is when the pain loosens its grip. And isn't it interesting how people mistake tiredness for weakness? They see the slump in your shoulders and think you're defeated. They hear the quiet in your voice and assume you've surrendered. They watch you pause, and they call it hesitation. Yet they never realize that even in your most exhausted moments, you showed more strength than anyone else in the room. Because while others ran from the fire, you walked through it. While others hid from the truth, you faced it. While others escaped their battles, you stayed and fought yours until you had nothing left. There's a dangerous beauty in reaching that point where life stops hurting. It feels like stepping out of a burning building and only then realizing how hot the flames were. You finally understand the difference between being weak and being worn out. Weakness crumbles under pressure. Exhaustion keeps standing long after the pressure should have crushed it. Weakness avoids the fight. Exhaustion fights until there's nothing left to give. And yet the world has the audacity to call you weak during your tired moments, never seeing the storms you walked through to get there. The moment life stops hurting, you start noticing things. The way your body relaxes for the first time in years. The way your mind stops racing like a machine stuck on survival mode. The way your heart beats without panic, without dread, without that familiar heaviness you carried like a shadow. You notice how strange it feels to be okay. How unusual it is to not brace for the next blow. How unfamiliar relief feels against skin that's been used to tension. And that's when the truth settles in. You weren't weak for falling apart. You were tired from holding everything together for too long. You weren't weak for crying. You were tired of pretending nothing hurt. You weren't weak for slowing down. You were tired of running on wounds that never had time to heal. You weren't weak for needing people. You were tired of convincing yourself you didn't. Life stops hurting the moment you give yourself permission to rest, to breathe, to let go of the constant pressure you placed on yourself. The moment you stop fighting battles that aren't yours. The moment you allow your scars to be reminders of survival, not evidence of failure. The moment you realize that tiredness isn't shameful, it's human. And in that moment, when you finally feel the pain loosen, you see yourself clearly for the first time in a long, long while. You see someone who endured, someone who persisted, someone who crawled through impossible days and still found a way forward. Someone who wasn't weak at all, just carrying more than anyone should have to carry. And once you understand that, once you feel that truth settle into your bones, you look at yourself in a way you haven't in years, with recognition, with compassion, with the quiet understanding that you never failed, you simply needed rest. You ever wake up with that strange feeling in your chest, that the world moved while you were asleep? That something changed, something shifted, but no one bothered to tell you? Everyone else seems to know. Their eyes carry that little spark of knowledge, that hidden smirk, that quiet silence that says more than words ever could. But you're left standing in the middle of it all, trying to piece together what you missed. Funny thing about nights like that, they hide truth behind shadows. And when the sun comes up, the lies wear daylight like a mask. You ever notice how quiet it gets right before something goes wrong? That kind of silence that isn't peace, it's pressure. The kind that sits heavy in your chest and makes you question whether the world just took a deep breath and decided to stop playing fair. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout. It doesn't warn. It doesn't ask for permission. It hides. It waits. It lingers behind a smile, behind a word, behind a moment so ordinary you almost forget to look twice. But that's where it is, right there, in the silence before everything changes. People think truth is supposed to feel good, like a warm light breaking through darkness. But it doesn't. It stings. It burns. It crawls under your skin until you can't ignore it anymore. The silence before the truth hits is worse than the truth itself, because deep down you already know something's coming. You can feel it. The air feels too still, the people around you seem too careful, and your thoughts start looping like a broken record. That's how truth plays with you. It lets you walk straight into its trap. without saying a word. See, most people don't listen to silence. They fill it with noise, distractions, chatter, anything to keep from hearing what it's really saying. But silence is honest. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't lie to make you comfortable. It tells you everything you're too afraid to admit. And when it shows up right before something happens, you'd better pay attention, because that's not silence, that's truth breathing down your neck. When people start getting quiet around you, when their tone shifts, when their eyes avoid yours for a moment too long, that's truth moving behind the curtain. It's not random. It's not paranoia. It's a signal. The world speaks in patterns, not words, and the smartest ones are those who can read the silence. Because when truth hides, it hides in plain sight. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just waits for you to notice the wrong rhythm in the room, the misplaced smile, the delayed response. It's funny, isn't it? Everyone claims they want the truth, but when silence stretches too long, they start to panic. Because silence is a mirror, it forces you to listen to your own doubts, your own suspicions, your own guilt. The truth doesn't have to come from someone else. Sometimes it's buried in your own mind, whispering from the corners, daring you to look closer. That's why so many run from it. Because silence makes you confront yourself. There's a reason why the truth waits until the right moment. It doesn't show up when you're ready, it shows up when you're comfortable. When you least expect it. When you think you've got it all figured out. That's when it strikes. Because truth doesn't want to be discovered. It wants to be felt. It wants to break something inside you just enough for you to finally see. You can tell when the truth is near. The air changes. People start acting out of rhythm. Laughter sounds forced. The world feels like it's holding its breath. That's the silence before the storm. It's not empty, it's loaded. It's charged with all the things no one wants to say. All the things that are about to come crashing down. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. The faint hum of reality rearranging itself around you. The truth, hiding, but not gone. So when that kind of silence falls, the kind that makes your stomach twist and your thoughts spiral, don't run from it. Don't try to drown it out. Watch it. Feel it. Let it crawl through you. Because that's the moment right before everything shifts. The truth always hides in silence before it strikes. It doesn't miss its mark. It just waits for you to stop pretending you can't hear it. People talk too much. That's their problem. They think words are the only way to communicate, that truth lives in sentences, in explanations, in carefully chosen tones. But no, it's the opposite. The truth is in the pauses, the stutters, the half smiles that don't reach the eyes. It's in what they don't say. You can read a person's entire story by the things they leave unsaid. Words lie. Silence doesn't. You ever notice how someone avoids a topic, how their voice trembles just before they change it? That's not coincidence, that's fear, wrapped in politeness. They won't tell you what they're hiding, but they'll dance around it, hoping you won't step on the right spot. The truth leaks out through their gestures. A blink too fast, a smile too sharp, a breath too shallow. You don't need to be told what's wrong. You can feel it. Right there between the lines they refuse to speak. See, people are masters of pretending. They'll decorate their lies with charm and confidence. Wear them like perfume until you stop smelling the rot underneath. But the body betrays them every time. Watch their hands. People who lie touch their faces too much. Their eyes look for exits instead of connection. Their posture stiffens like a child caught doing something wrong. You won't hear the truth from their lips, but you'll see it in their stillness, in the tension that fills the space where honesty should have lived. Most can't stand silence. They fill it with meaningless chatter, jokes, noise, anything to keep their truth buried a little longer. That's how guilt works. It hates quiet rooms, because in silence the truth starts whispering, and those whispers turn into screams if you sit long enough. So people distract themselves. They talk and talk and talk, not to share, but to hide. Every unnecessary word is a brick in the wall they build between you and the truth. You want to know who someone really is? Don't listen to what they tell you. Watch what they avoid. The way they flinch when a certain name comes up, the quick subject changes, the sigh that escapes before they catch it. That's where the truth lives, in the cracks. You can always sense it. That nervous energy that leaks through. Like a light flickering in a dark hallway, it's impossible to ignore once you've seen it. And the best part? People think they're clever. They believe they can control perception, that as long as they sound convincing, they're safe. But emotion doesn't take orders. No matter how much they rehearse, the truth has its own timing. It waits until they relax, until they believe they've fooled you. Then it slips out in tone, in breath, in the smallest, most innocent moment. You just have to be patient enough to see it. The trick is not to listen for the confession. That's too obvious. It's about noticing what's missing, what they didn't answer, what they couldn't say. When you ask a question and someone gives you everything except the one thing you needed, that's it. That's where the truth hides. And most people will never catch it because they're too busy reacting to the words instead of reading the silence. The world is full of noise, voices fighting to be heard, lies layered over truth, distractions built on top of distractions. But if you sit still, if you listen beyond the chaos, you start hearing something else. The trembling underneath, the hesitation, the words that should have been spoken but weren't. That's the language of honesty. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It's the one no one wants to speak, but everyone eventually reveals without meaning to. So when someone talks to you, don't get lost in their story. Look in their eyes. Watch how they breathe when they speak. Listen for the seconds between words. Because the truth doesn't always show itself with sound. Sometimes it lives in the silence that follows, in the way they can't meet your gaze, in the pulse that quickens just before they lie. People reveal more in what they don't say than what they do. And once you start noticing it, you can never unhear it again. Every secret has a pulse. You can feel it if you're still enough, quiet enough, detached enough from the noise. It beats beneath the surface of people's smiles, beneath their words, beneath the stories they tell themselves to sleep at night. Most walk around thinking their secrets are buried. That time killed the evidence. But time doesn't bury it. Breathes. It keeps those secrets alive, pulsing, waiting for the right moment to surface. You can sense it in a room when someone's hiding something. The air feels thicker, heavier. Their energy leaks like smoke from a crack they can't seal. They try to play it cool, but their heart gives them away. Secrets are alive. They breathe through body language, through hesitation, through that faint tremor in their voice when the conversation drifts too close to the truth. You can pretend all you want, but the body remembers. The heart remembers, and it beats differently when it's protecting something. There's a strange rhythm to guilt. It doesn't shout. It hums low, constant, just below hearing range. You might not catch it right away, but once you do, you can't tune it out. It's the sound of a mind trying to convince itself that everything's fine. It's the heartbeat of denial. And when you're close enough to someone carrying a secret, you feel it, that uneven pulse in the air, that static tension they can't quite hide. People think secrets die when you stop talking about them, but they don't. They evolve. They change shape. They disguise themselves as laughter, as distraction, as strength. But deep down, they're alive, pacing in the dark corners of your thoughts, waiting for the smallest crack to escape. The truth doesn't rot, it waits. And when it's finally ready, it doesn't knock politely. It explodes. You ever look at someone and just know they're carrying something? You can't explain it, but it's there in their eyes, in the way they blink too slow or smile too fast. It's like they're trying to convince the world that they're fine, but their soul is screaming for someone to notice. That's the heartbeat I'm talking about, the one you can't silence, no matter how hard you try. Because secrets crave exposure. They want to be seen, even if it destroys everything. The longer you hold a secret, the louder it gets. It starts whispering in your quiet moments, echoing in your thoughts when no one's around. It turns into paranoia, into restlessness, into a kind of madness where you can't tell if you're protecting yourself or suffocating. And that's when it happens. The slip, the trembling hands, the cracked laugh, the nervous over-explanation. It's not weakness, it's inevitability. You can't cage something that was born to surface. And when that secret finally escapes, it doesn't walk out quietly. It drags everything with it. Every lie, every cover-up, every little compromise that built the walls around it. The heartbeat turns into a thunderclap, and the silence that follows is deafening, because that's the moment when everything becomes clear, not just to others, but to you. The moment you realize the secret was never really hidden. It was living right under your skin. Some people think they can outsmart their own conscience. They think if they stay busy, laugh louder, sleep less, they can drown out the pulse. But the truth has patience. It doesn't chase you. It waits for you to tire yourself out. It watches you spin in circles, trip over your excuses, and eventually face yourself in the mirror. Because that's where it hides, not in the world, not in the people around you, but in the reflection you avoid looking at for too long. So, the next time you feel that strange tension in the air, that unspoken heaviness around someone, stop and listen. That's not awkwardness. That's not imagination. That's a secret's heartbeat. Faint, steady, waiting. And once you recognize that sound, you start hearing it everywhere, in the pauses of conversations, in the laughter that lasts a second too long, in the eyes that flicker when the wrong question is asked. Every secret has a heartbeat waiting to be heard. It's never really gone, just waiting for someone brave enough to listen close enough. People say ignorance is bliss, but that's only true until the curtain falls. You see, ignorance isn't peace, it's the blindfold before the fire. It's pretending you're safe while the floor burns beneath your feet. Everyone loves to live in the comfort of not knowing, of convincing themselves that if they don't look, the truth won't exist. But truth doesn't care if you're looking. It just waits. It sharpens its knife in silence and smiles while you dance around pretending everything's fine. There's a strange kind of calm in ignorance. It feels warm at first, soft, easy. You don't ask questions, you don't challenge what's given to you. You just accept the illusion and call it peace. But peace built on lies doesn't last long, because truth has a cruel sense of timing. It doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you least expect it, when you've grown too comfortable, when the fake reality feels safest. That's when it rips through everything you thought you understood. You ever see that look in someone's eyes when the truth finally hits? That moment of disbelief, confusion, anger, fear, all at once. It's like watching a soul wake up from a dream it didn't know it was in. That's the cost of ignorance. The longer you stay blind, the harder it hurts when you finally see. And that's why so many people choose not to look. They think not knowing will save them from pain. But the truth doesn't wait to be acknowledged, it collects interest. There's always a setup before revelation. The quiet days, the fake smiles, the little coincidences that don't make sense until later. Ignorance feeds on those moments. It lets you believe everything's normal so that when the truth hits, it doesn't just break you, it shatters the world you built around the lie. That's the setup before revelation, the calm before the storm disguised as peace. You can always tell when someone's hiding behind ignorance. They avoid certain words, certain questions. They laugh too quickly when the subject gets too close. They say things like, "I don't want to think about that," as if denial could protect them from reality. But the truth doesn't care about what you want to face. It's not waiting for permission. It's already moving, already rewriting the story behind your back. And when the truth finally decides to step into the light, it doesn't just show what's real, it shows what was fake. Every excuse, every lie, every moment you ignored the signs, all of it laid bare. That's the part people fear most, not the truth itself, but the reflection of who they were while they refused to see it. Because ignorance isn't just blindness, it's complicity. You helped build the illusion that destroyed you. The world's cruel like that. It lets you walk around thinking you're in control, that if you don't know, you're safe. But truth is patient. It's not chasing you. It's following quietly, step by step, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And when it does, it won't whisper, it'll scream. It'll tear down the walls you built with your silence and force you to see what you should have seen long ago. You ever wonder why some people get hit harder by the truth than others? It's because they spent longer hiding from it. They built an entire life around avoiding that one realization, that one fact that could have set them free if only they'd faced it sooner. But they didn't. They chose comfort over clarity, illusion over awareness. And by the time the truth finally caught up, it wasn't a message, it was a punishment. That's what ignorance really is. Not peace, not protection. It's the setup, the illusion that keeps you calm before the fall. It's the smile you wear before the mirror cracks. And the cruelest part, you never know when it's going to happen. You never see it coming until it's already here, until the silence breaks, and the truth walks in, and suddenly the world you thought you knew collapses under its own lies. Ignorance isn't safety. It's the stage built just before revelation takes the spotlight. The smallest details are always the loudest. It's funny how people miss that. They're too busy watching the big picture, chasing the drama, waiting for the obvious to reveal itself, and that's exactly why they never see the truth. The truth doesn't walk through the front door with a spotlight. It slips through cracks, hides in habits, disguises itself in moments so small you almost laugh when you realize what you missed. But that's where it always hides, in plain sight, buried beneath the noise you thought didn't matter. You can tell everything about someone by how they do the smallest things. The way they look at you when they think you're not watching. The way their tone changes ever so slightly when they lie. The way their eyes dart to the side when you get too close to something they'd rather keep buried. These moments are quick, like flickers of lightning gone before most people notice. But if you've learned to pay attention, really pay attention, you'll see the whole story unfold without a single word being spoken. The smallest detail can unravel everything. That one misplaced object, that one slip in a sentence, that one inconsistency in their timeline. People think lies are crafted perfectly, but they're not. They're stitched together with panic. Lies have edges that don't align, and the truth leaks out through the seams. You can see it if you're patient enough, if you let silence do the heavy lifting. The truth always trips over itself, trying to stay hidden. It's strange how the mind tries to protect what it fears. People rehearse their lies, polish their stories, make them sound so convincing that even they start to believe them. But the body betrays them. The tapping fingers, the shallow breathing, the forced calm, these are the tells. The smallest tremors that expose the storm beneath the surface. You can hear it in the rhythm of their words. You can see it in how they stand still for just a second too long. That's the moment when truth whispers through the cracks, daring you to catch it. Most people don't notice because they don't want to. They prefer comfort over clarity. They want everything to make sense, to stay simple. So they ignore the inconsistencies, brush off the red flags, pretend the signs don't mean anything. But deep down, they know. They always know. The smallest detail sticks to the back of their mind, gnawing quietly until the truth can no longer be ignored. That's the beauty of it. You can't hide from what your gut already saw. Sometimes, the smallest detail isn't even something you see. It's something you feel. The shift in energy when someone enters the room. The tension that wraps around a conversation that's trying too hard to stay casual. The laughter that sounds a little too hollow. You can't explain it logically, but it's there, that tiny signal your intuition catches before your mind can make sense of it. That's not paranoia. That's awareness. It's your inner voice whispering, something doesn't add up. You learn to trust that feeling after a while. The more you ignore it, the louder it gets. The truth doesn't need proof to exist. It just needs your attention. And when you finally decide to listen, the pieces start to fall into place. The patterns reveal themselves. Every small detail, every minor inconsistency, every overlooked sign, they all start connecting, painting a picture that was right in front of you the entire time. People think big betrayals come with big warnings. They don't. They come with small ones, ignored messages, delayed reactions, the subtle change in how someone says your name. And by the time you realize what those signs meant, it's too late. The truth's already done its damage. That's why you learn to notice the little things, because once you start seeing them, you can't unsee them. They tell you everything you need to know long before the world decides to catch up. The smallest detail can expose the biggest betrayal. That's the secret no one wants to admit. You don't need to dig deep or demand answers. You just need to be still. Watch. Listen. People always reveal themselves not through their grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but through the little things they think no one notices. That's where the truth breathes, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment you finally decide to look close enough. There's something strange about silence, isn't there? People can't handle it. They start fidgeting, laughing awkwardly, saying things they don't even mean just to fill the space. But silence is where the truth hides. It's where thoughts echo loudest. It's the sound of the mask, slipping, of the heart, revealing what the mouth is too scared to admit. If you can stay quiet long enough, if you can let that uncomfortable stillness settle in, you'll start to hear what others try so hard to bury. That's when the real message starts to whisper. The world talks too much. Everyone wants to be heard. No one wants to listen. They scream for attention. perform for approval, drown in noise, and call it connection. But underneath all that chaos, something else is speaking, not through words, but through moments, through patterns, through events that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidence. You can call it intuition, destiny, energy, but deep down, you know what it really is. Something's trying to get your attention, something bigger than you. The funny thing is, it never shouts. It never forces its way through. It just places little signs along your path, a conversation you overhear at the right time, a number that keeps showing up, a message that hits you harder than it should. Most people shrug it off. They think it's random. But that's the trick, isn't it? The extraordinary always hides behind the ordinary. The impossible dresses up as coincidence, hoping you're paying enough attention to notice. You ever wonder why things start repeating in your life? Why certain faces keep appearing? Certain feelings won't go away. Certain dreams won't let you rest. That's not chance. That's communication. Every repetition is a tap on your shoulder, a quiet reminder that you've seen this before for a reason. You're being nudged, guided, redirected, not by logic, but by something unseen. But you'll never notice it if you're too busy running from silence, too addicted to distraction, too afraid to face what the quiet is trying to tell you. When strange things start lining up, when the impossible starts feeling a little too real, most people panic. They call it luck, fate, madness, anything but what it truly is, because the truth terrifies them. The idea that something, someone, might actually be watching, guiding, shaping moments to wake you up. It's too much for the human mind. It wants control. It wants reasons. But this doesn't fit into reason. It's too precise, too personal, too divine to be denied. The signs don't come with explanations. They come with decisions. You either see them or you don't. You either trust the timing or you fight it. That's the cruel beauty of it. You get to choose whether to believe. But belief has consequences. Once you admit that something bigger is speaking to you, you can't pretend life is random anymore. You start realizing every heartbreak had a purpose, every delay was protection, every loss was a redirection. You start to see the pattern, not chaos, but choreography. And maybe that's what the message really is, that all those things you thought were falling apart were actually falling into place, that the doors that slammed shut were never meant for you, and the ones that opened unexpectedly, those were the ones written with your name long before you even asked. It's almost poetic, how the universe rearranges itself in silence while you're too busy shouting for answers. You don't even realize the pieces are moving until they've already formed the picture you were meant to see. People say they want a sign, but when it shows up, they question it. They pray for direction, then ignore the road when it lights up in front of them. Because believing means surrendering, and surrendering means losing control. But control is the illusion that keeps them blind. The moment you stop trying to force things, that's when everything starts aligning. It's almost like life rewards the ones who trust without proof, who listen when no one else can hear, who feel the pull and dare to follow it anyway. You don't need to understand how it all works. You just need to recognize when something inside you shifts, when your gut tightens, when your heart beats faster for no reason, when you suddenly know something without being told. That's the message. That's the connection. It doesn't speak through logic, it speaks through resonance. It doesn't ask for evidence, it asks for awareness. The signs were never hiding. They were waiting for you to open your eyes. And once you do, you realize the silence was never empty. It was full full of meaning, full of direction, full of truth, waiting patiently for you to finally listen.